good evening everyone. It's cocktail hour, summer in the world, and I hope you've got a little something to enjoy yourself with as I take you into deductions of the mysteries that make for the Dirty Martini. I'm Philip Jones, the Martini Whisperer, and lovely to have you along this evening. So let's get to it. And if you can't stay for the whole time, that's fine. This is recorded and it'll be on my YouTube channel, like I said, on Wednesday, like all the other previous episodes of Sipping Time. So let's get started. What makes for a great Dirty Martini? And what I'm going to do this evening is take you through all the key ingredients, how you make some really nice brine to elevate your own Dirty Martini at home or in the bar, and of course make one, because I'll be thirsty by the time I'm done talking about it. So now I used to joke, and I still joke, that a martini's got a life expectancy of about 15 minutes or so. Not just because I drink them kind of quick, that's been known to happen around here. Evaporation rate is terrible right now, by your house, but we're getting through the gin at a pretty rapid rate. Anyways, the point being that a martini should be crisp and cold and pristine for as long as possible, especially the classic dry martini. And we've touched on other episodes, and you can go to my channel and see other things about different ratios of vermouth to gin or vodka, as the case may be. But the Dirty Martini is a lot more tolerant than the classic dry martini. And the reason being that as the cocktail gets a bit warmer, the complexities of the flavours really kind of open up. So, where do you want to go? It kind of appeared on the radar officially in the 1930s or thereabouts in America, both gin and vodka permutations. And I think quite simply it was just that some people just really enjoy the savoury saltiness that you get from the olive juice or the olive brine. Because at the end of the day, it's all about this stuff. This beautiful, gorgeous juiciness, which we're going to go into a bit today. And there's another clip on my channel, YouTube channel, which goes into some of the making of in a bit more detail too. So I'll cover as much as I can for you today, and if I miss anything, you can check that one out too. What makes for a Dirty Martini? Let's start at the very basics. So you got your dry vermouth, you've got your gin or your vodka, as the case may be, and most importantly, you've got the olive juice or olive brine. Now, and plus the olives. Let's start at the very beginning. So you go to your supermarket, and there's also, or your deli, or wherever you like to go shopping, and there's lots of ones to choose from. You could have, these are just supermarket bought. These are just pitted green olives, Sicilian, or you might have prefer the unpitted. These are whole ones. These are no particular brand, not endorsing them in particular, but I quite like the Sicilian green with the pips in. Reason being, you get a lot more flavour out of them. You can go completely retro, and our old friend the old pimento. Oh yeah, right. Some people frown upon these, but you know, they're perfectly acceptable in Palm Springs, trust me. Or you can go completely crazy, blue cheese stuffed olives, and I know even from our American friends have anchovy stuffed olives, which is like, I know, right? But at your house you can drink it however you damn well want. So the choice of olives is quite interesting, and I like to have a couple two on the go. So let me introduce to my little treasure here. This jar lives in my fridge, and it has 2 or 3 different types of olives in them, both pitted and unpitted Sicilian, plus a few bits of lemon rind, which I change over every week or so. So if you're wondering what happens to my leftover lemon garnishes from my other martinis, they end up in here. Now, how do you make your brine? Because this is really, really important. So when you buy the stuff from the shop, and of course, the Dirty Martini is a very subjective thing. I know, I should get out more. A very subjective thing, because if you go to a bar or you're drinking from home, they're going to ask you, well, how dirty do you want it? Do you want it a bit dirty or do I have to filthy, so to speak? And that's a very subjective decision about what that actually tastes like. So I'm going to take you through how we get these permutations up. But anyway, so you brought your jar home from the deli or from the supermarket. You want to taste the brine first to see before you do anything. And it could be just exactly the way you like it. My wife, she's got her own stash of, she loves Dirty Martinis. So she has her own stash of olives just for her, because what I do to mine is I curate these, like I say, with some lemon and some vodka and some dry vermouth and the 2 types of olives, and freshen up with lemon peel every week or so, and that gives me the brine I like to work with. What you don't want is, and you've got to be very careful when you go to a deli or something, very oily brine. So if you're getting, by mistake, Kalamata olives or black olives or something like that, just check the jar first before you go crazy putting it in your cocktail, because what you don't want, definitely not, is, bubbles of oil sipping on the top of your cocktail. I've seen that, and it's not a pretty place. I have seen in some restaurants little pinkish hues, and they've used a tiny little touch of Kalamata brine. Very hard one to pull off though, and you run the risk, as I said, of getting oil in your brine, which is not what you don't want. So what do you want? Because the point of a dirty martini is you want that kind of savoury complexity that you get from the olive juice. The other thing that's different about the dirty martini is the ratios of vermouth, dry vermouth, to your spirit. Because again, you're after for a richer flavour. So let's talk about that for a minute. So I use Nolly Prat as my house pour, or the Lovey Dolan from France, dry vermouth, very aromatic and delicate. You may be a Cinzano or a Martini person. These are a bit more wine-driven, more fruit-driven than, say, the French varieties, and that's perfectly fine. Or you can go really exotic. And this is an Australian vermouth. I've been prototyping this, and it works very nicely for Maid and I, Venomere Nocturne, and actually has some truffles in it. Because again, it's one of those cocktails where you can be really adventurous and rich about it. So get to know your ingredients before you go mixing away. Also in choices of gin or gin or vodka, I like to choose a spirit that actually has a fair bit of personality and flavour about it. This is not a subtle cocktail. You know, you're in for the flavour here, kids. So a good, strong London dry gin, but I've also had things, for example, in San Diego, where they use a Spanish gin called Gin Marais. If you've ever had that, it's got rosemary and salt, and that was just a killer dirty martini. Absolutely sensational, because all those sort of aromatic rosemary notes just came through and just really cut through, beautifully done. And today I'm going to be using one from New South Wales called Jaraja in the Southern Highlands near Bowral. So they've got a really spicy, forward-flavoured, juniper-forward gin. Or, you know, you might want to choose, this is a Tasmanian vodka called Fire Drum, which is very grainy and sort of nice charcoal toasty flavours to it. So again, think about your ingredients, and you can go a bit more adventuresome and muck around with it. So you've got your brine, you've got your vermouth, your choice of vermouth, you've got your base spirit. So then where do you go with that? Now, let's make one, shall we? And if you've got a question, I'll do my best to answer them. So I've got all my ingredients here. I've got my chilled cocktail glass with some ice in it. I've got my martini glass. Normally I would leave this in the fridge to the very, very last minute, but because we're camping today, so I'm out here. And of course the vermouth, and not least, orange bitters. Orange bitters is a really key ingredient, and so some might say it's a critical ingredient of a good martini. It sounds a bit weird just to say a few drops makes a difference, but it does. And so there's quite a few different varieties, but the ones I like to recommend, friends, is both American, Reagan's, or Fee Brothers. I think about third or fourth generation they've been making these. Absolutely fantastic. There's not much between them really, and there's an article on my site if you want to go a bit deeper about them and how they're made. Or you can go a little bit adventuresome, like I was saying, and Fee Brothers make a gin barrel aged orange bitters, and this is like doozy stuff. So a couple of drops of this, really a lot of oomph to it, will really kind of cut through. So you're making lots of fun really. So let's make a drink. Normally I wouldn't measure, but because we're in polite company, I might do that. So as I said, with the vermouth and the dirty martini, you can really dial up the ratios a lot. So we're not making a dry martini. So for today's purposes, it's going to be 15 mils or half an ounce of, in this case, Nolly Prat vermouth. So, and we're going to use this Jaraja gin I mentioned before from some New South Wales. 2 nips or a couple of ounces. So it's going to be nice to 60 mils. Bear in mind, we've still got a couple of ingredients to go yet. I'm going to opt for the barrel-aged orange bitters. So what I'm after here is a really kind of very pronounced dirty martini on the filthy end of the spectrum. So some bars I've been to, they're very, very good about this. They'll get a bit of a read on you. And then so just a couple of drops is all you need. Doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me. And when you get the dirty martini, hopefully it's the way you like it, and they'll come back and check to make sure it's salty enough or dirty enough, so to speak. But they'll put on the side some extra olives and extra brinal juice, so you can add a little bit as you go, which I think is a really nice, classy touch. Because again, it's a very subjective thing. You know, if you're making it for yourself, that's fine. Now for the fun bit. So I've got my jar of beautiful olive juice, yeah, and your bar spoon or a teaspoon will do if you don't have a bar spoon, and I put in, say, a minimum of 5. Now bear in mind, I know what this brine tastes like, so it's not super salty, not super savoury, But what you're after, of course, so there's, let's say about 5. And if you look closely, you'll see there's a colour to it now. So you can see that's both from the vermouth and from the brine. That's kind of what you're after. So we're going to stir it down. And then I'm going to taste. It's a bit like baking in a way. It's easier to add than to take away. So your taste and getting quite close. So try to imagine what it tastes like. Saltiness, definitely olive, a little bit of citrus there from the peel that's kept in. I might just add a couple more. Voila. And again, you can check the colour. You can see a little hints of amber there. You know it's going to be good. The other thing about dirty martinis is, like I was saying, they kind of last a long time. They're called a very good conversational martini in terms of you're not, because it gets warm or not super chilled, it doesn't matter so much because these complexity of flavours really open up. So it's great for food occasions, for dinner, you know, and it goes really well as an after dinner cocktail. Voila. So chill martini glass out of the way. So normally I would keep that in the fridge to the very last minute. And if you've just tuned in and you've missed a bit, this has been recorded, so it'll also go on the YouTube channel. Thank you. Well, yeah. Let's see it tastes any better. Into the glass. You can see what I mean from there. Olives, again, from the selection in my brown. I always like an odd number, looks better for symmetry. These are pivoted. So voila, here's to you guys. Your health, prosperity in future. But note the colour, yeah? So this is clearly not your dry martini. Does it look good to you? What do you think? Let's see. Cheers. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Because the hero of the drink, not surprisingly, what we're going on about, is this. But it's cut down by the vermouth, which adds some spice and complexity. And the gin, it's still there. I'm still getting the gin coming through. So if I've done my job right, all those different flavour notes are going to be touched on. Now, if you want a dirtier, thank you. That's not shabby. And the orange bitters, like I said, in which case the barrel aged orange bitters, what you get then is some punchy citrus notes, not surprisingly, that come through at the back. So that kind of cuts through just a little bit as well. I'm going to have another sip. What do you think? Cheers. And again, what I'm going to get is look nice, and that'd be great with like oysters or any savoury kind of canapes you want to do. You can of course do it at scale, but again, the trick is when you're making it, you add just about 4, 5, 6 teaspoons of the juice first. Give it a swirl, taste it, see how you're travelling. Maybe offer it to you if you're making one for a guest. Say, is this, you know, we're using a straw or something? Is this are we on the right track here? I've got a question here. How do you make your brine? And would you say if it was on the dirty side? Yes. So if on a scale of not very dirty to filthy, this is sitting about, and super filthy is like 10, this is sitting about a 7. So I could go dirtier, but you see nice colour there. I've upped the vermouth, so it's about 1-to-4 ratio of the vermouth to gin, which also had so the complexity and the flavours come through, and the orange bitters. And so you could certainly add another 3 or 4 teaspoons of that brine to make it dirtier, to land that way. Looking at your questions here, how do I make my brine? Exactly so. So there is another clip on my YouTube channel which goes a bit more detail, but its short version is come back to the shops, try the brine that those things come in. If it's good, like not super oily or anything like that, not some extra flavours, I'll retain most of that and it'll go in this jar, or at least half of it. Then I'll add a splash of vodka, because what the heck. Then some lemon twist and a bunch of dry vermouth. So probably about 10% vermouth, at 5% vodka, and then the rest is the brine as we go. And then that brine will change. So if I add another, say there's a new jar I'm adding to it, I'll taste that first and see how it travels. And again, what I'm looking for is something that's not too salty or too briny. It's easier just to add more teaspoons, yeah, rather than have something too powerful and pungent in here. And the spirit's just there to help to preserve them still a bit. Looking at your questions now. Is it acceptable to add extra brine or bitters once the glass is poured? Excellent question. Yes, it is. Absolutely. At some bars, I've seen little chasers of extra olives and extra brine. And so if despite their best efforts, still wasn't quite filthy enough for you, you can just add a little bit and, give a little stir. It's your cocktail. You can do what you will. Cheers. Getting thirsty now. Got another question coming up. Who else are we talking about? Welcome everybody for tuning in. We're talking about dirty martinis this evening, and if you've missed a bit, don't worry. This has been recorded and it'll be on my YouTube channel on Wednesday. So that's why I'm saying when you're trying to create your brine with like the original brine that came in, a little bit of spirit, some dry vermouth, lemon peel, which you change out every week, so it stays nice and fresh. That cuts through things just a little bit. Again, you're not wanting something that's oily at all. You're really after the flavour. And it's easy for answer to add more teaspoons of brine to the cocktail. Taste it, stir it, add some more, taste it, stir it, add some more until you get it to where you want it to get to. But clearly once you've gone to pint of half a turn, it's too bad. You can also need, I said, to think about your different types of vermouth can come into play. So this was a Noddy Pratt, so it's nice and spicy, but not overly. But if I was going to get adventuresome, like I was saying earlier, with say an exotic vermouth like this, for example, then that's a whole different flavour profile again. But that's okay. We've got a question coming through. Gin Days is asking, is there a particular style of gin that lends itself to a dirty martini more than others? Yes, there is. So, dare I say it, Beefeater. You want a punchy, spicy London dry style gin. You can get other, you can get some more sort of contemporary style, but what you're after is a gin that's still going to stand up to all the other stuff you're going to be adding to this drink. The hero, of course, is the olive flavours that what you want, but you still want a gin martini or a vodka martini, as the case may be. So if we're talking other vodkas, I'd be looking at a grain vodka, or I reviewed recently the Vestal vodka. That's fantastic. That'd be very nice in this because it's got some really nice grainy, toasty notes to it. So in short, you want a spirit, a London dry gin or a vodka that's got some personality behind it that can still cut through all this, because again, what's the end result you want? You want a savoury cocktail that has complexity, and still elegant, and a combination of some of its parts. Getting thirsty now. Excuse me while I have a sip. Love these questions, thanks guys. Keep them coming. Also, if we've just tuned in, don't forget the orange bitters too. So I just added about 3 drops of the barrel aged from Fee Brothers, and that's very, very punchy in and of itself. So I get that on the back note, thereabouts. But the even just the standard like Regan's or so on is pretty acceptable. Normally with orange bitters, if I'm making just a regular martini, I add it after I've poured, and added. So if I poured, say this is a regular dry martini, I would add a couple of drops on top for the aromatics primarily. But in the instance of a dirty martini, I always add it to the mix. So to recap, you've got more vermouth, at least probably a 1:5 or 1:4 ratio of vermouth, depending on what you're working with. Very thirsty after watching this. Yes, I'm a bad influence, Gin Day. Sorry about that. Just can't help myself. Yes, so more vermouth, because again, you after more complexity and spice and savoury flavour profile notes, go for a punchy spirit. And I'm not joking. You look at a Beefeater or one of those old school classic gins like that. They're ideal for this kind of business. Then, of course, you're going to be thinking about your brine. So you might get lucky with the stuff in your supermarket or whatever and do the business, but again, you don't want oiliness, you want some natural flavours, and you definitely got to be careful and just test it that you don't have like awful oils. I've done that by mistake and you just can't get it out, so it ruins the drink. And if you want to get adventuresome, you can make your own brine, either to add it more subtlety or add some vermouth, like I was saying, or a bit of spirit to preserve it, or orange bitters. Or people just want it natural, that's perfectly fine. Got some more questions coming in. And again, thanks for everyone joining in. Gin Society's here, nice to see you all. Thanks for coming. Firstly, work making dirty martinis, I assure you. I had one in a bar in Melbourne, and it was a purple hue. I tried to find a photo just before here, but I couldn't find it, sorry. I used it when my TED talk about the martini. It was such a beautiful looking drink. And they actually had, dare I say it, a black Kalamata olive as the garnish, which is in some circles a big no-no. And the hue in the glass was almost violet. And it was just beautiful. And they used the Gin Marais gin from Spain, which is a lovely, beautiful, evocative, contemporary style gin. Lovely stuff. Question coming in, looking very smart. Oh, it's just every night at my house. This is like how we do 5 o'clock every night. It's lovely to have you along. Pleasure of your company. Where were we? Talking about gin martinis. Yes, so this had a very, this particular cocktail had a bit of a lilac hue to it, which really freaked me out. So I was able to sweet talk the bar person into telling me how they made it. Cheers, McHenry. Love to have you along. And what they did was they had a deli. They could give them the, you know, when you get the caramel olives in a deli and the juice that sits in, and you know, usually they'd scoop it out and you get a tub to put on your pizza or whatever. They got some of that and added that to their brine mix. Now I've tried that a few times and I've never been able to replicate it. I've always got, like I said, that oiliness that come through, even though I've kind of patted off the olives and all the rest of it. So it's a unicorn moment, dare I say it. But it all comes back to this stuff. The Dirty Martini, as I said, I can leave it alone as long as it's nice and chilled. If it's getting too warm for you, what you can simply do is just get fresh glass, fresh ice, pour the balance of your cocktail in, stir it back down. I was in a bar in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was a great little bar, had a nice cocktail. I was halfway through my drink and they went to take it away. I went, what are you doing with my cocktail? And said, oh, we're just freshening your glass, sir. So what they simply did was fresh chilled glass, fresh ice, just stirred it down and then brought it back nice and pristine with the balance of the drink, so that I could simply enjoy the rest of my cocktail at a nice pristine fashion. So yes, I've got another question coming through here. The vermouth you have shown are all quite different. What are you looking for when selecting it with your gin? It's a lovely question, thank you. I'm not going to cop out and say it's a matter of taste. It's also about availability too. I know you're all from different countries and things like that. So some cases like the Australian vermouths you just can't get necessarily in America, for example, or some places Cinzano or Martini are more evident. Now, due respect to Cinzano and Martini, I find this, I don't like this in a martini, like a standard gin martini, because I just find it too fruity, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but to my palate, this kind of takes over a bit too much. And my approach about vermouth, in general, I should say, is that you see these techniques where they'll pour the vermouth into the mixer, they'll stir it around, pour it off, throw it on the floor, or do whatever. I just think that's, frankly, disrespectful to the vermouth and the people who make it. Just use less of it. So if you've got a very strong flavoured vermouth, it's there to complement the spirit. It's not meant there to dominate the cocktail. So just use less of it. Use half of what you normally would do and see how that works. I then tend to prefer the French dry vermouth because I like their spice and complexity. And everyone's tuning in. Lovely to see you all. Thank you. Again, and in a deeper question about which vermouth and which gin, the rule of thumb simply is that, as I said, the vermouth is there to complement and support. It almost provides a backbone to the cocktail. It's a PhD yet to be written about the relationship between vermouth and gin or vodka, the case may be. But it's not there to take over the drink. It's there to complement and reveal more complexity in the spirit. So think about if you've got a very full-flavoured, intense gin, then don't compete with that. Just either use less vermouth or a light vermouth, like a Dolan, for example. If you've got a gin or a vodka that's sort of lacking personality, for want of a better word, then go for a more flavoursome vermouth, and then you'll land somewhere in the middle, hopefully. It depends what you want to go. Question from Gin Society. Starting to move strictly into Gibson martinis, how do you rate them? Great backstory. Indeed, well, that was the subject of last week's episode. So if you jump on Gin Society to my YouTube, it's all there, and we did a little thing there. There's lots of backstories around the Gibson. My fun one apparently was two twin sisters after Prohibition called Gibson, who just simply like cocktail olives instead of olives. And voila. I remember drinking in a bar, famous bar in Palm Springs called Melvin's. Been around since 1950, if not earlier. And Sinatra, Bob Hope, and all the greats would drink there. And I was drinking, and we were drinking, and the whole restaurant, not kidding, it was like an episode of Mad Men. The restaurant hasn't changed. The staff have been there on average about 40 years. I think we're the youngest diners there, and everyone just drank Gibson martinis all night. It was just, I just cried. I was so happy. It's true. But yes, gifts and martinis are hard one to pull off. So I suggest you have a look at the last week's episode, friends, and we'll go into a fair bit of detail about that, and also how you make your own Gibson brine as well. Because I think at a time and place, they're a hard one to pull off. This is a hard one to pull off too sometimes, because if you go too one way or the other, unsatisfied customer. Voila. So we've done good work today, friends. I'm going to say, almost half an hour now, so I should say goodnight. It's been lovely to have you along in the episode of Sipping Time. Again, if you've missed a bit, don't worry. This will be uploaded to my YouTube channel on Wednesday evening, thereabout. So here's to you. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, learned a little something about the Dirty Martini this evening. And again, thanks for tuning in. Stay well. Until next time. Bye-bye.